Good evening. I'm very happy to be here and honored to be at the Montserrat Contemporary Art. This particular show involves birches, and you may wonder why birches? What is there about birch trees that are so compelling for artistic expression? Well, actually, I don't know if you realize this, but birches were spoken about by the Celts, who thought that birches had renewal power. People liked the idea of seeing the power of these trees. And what is important about the trees is that they're symbolic. They're symbolic of rebirth. They're symbolic of renewal. What would be a better symbol for our times than to look at the symbolic ways in which our spirituality is reflected in birch trees? I am really hoping that you do a little reading about birch trees. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. I did say that I've been painting for most of my life, but I'm also a psychologist. And one of the things I've noticed about psychologists is we're listeners. We lean in, we try to understand, and we look at behavior with depth. So, in a way, the artist's quest is not so different. Psychologists listen with their third ear, and artists see the world with their third eye. So this allows us to lean in, to get a sense of the sensibility of the universe around us, and it's a very meaningful expression of how we view the world. So I'm going to tell you a couple of things about some of these paintings, but I do want to mention one thing. There's one painting here that doesn't really fit in. This is part of a 40-piece collection that has been exhibited elsewhere. The interesting thing about, by the way, this is Eagle's Nest, and for those of you who are interested in the cosmos, I've been a bit of an astronomer most of my life. I have a telescope, I like looking at the stars, and I'm fascinated by the wonderful discoveries of nebulae and all the wonderful things that the universe has for us. So I did this collection based on my interpretation of what these galaxies and what these magnificent manifestations of the universe provide for us. So this was one of them. This is Eagle's Nest. It's a well-known constellation. It is something like 500 light years away, which really means that's how long it takes for it to come to us. This may not even exist today because the light that is coming to us is 500 light years away. So that's pretty powerful stuff when we think about the cosmos. So I focused on that exhibit, and here's a representation of that. But what I did with this exhibit is I looked at the spirituality of trees and the renewal. The beautiful thing about birch trees is the snow does not break the branches. And that's an important message for today, because it's a message about resilience, and it's a message about renewal, about rebirth. And at this time in our lives, we're really dealing with the whole sense of what we have been through with the pandemic. We've studied trauma a lot, and one of the things that has happened is that people have been traumatized during these times. I have been traumatized by the terrible loss that we've seen worldwide. And these paintings represent to me a renewal of hope, a renewal of spirit, and a renewal of life. So These are, by the way, I did some realistic work. This is a realistic bunch of birches, and I used this concept to extend the meaningful photos and depictions of birch trees. I went from that to increasingly abstract material. So if we look at that as a realistic representation, we can start to see some of the much more abstract, separating the plane and breaking down the concept. That was the most abstract expression of the birch trees. You can still see that they're birch trees, but they're depicted in a way that is personally meaningful, symbolically useful, and helpful for all of us to see. One other thing about birch trees: they provide cover for animals. Birch trees allow nature to flow freely, and that's important. So I have some views. This is a view looking upward of some birches. This is an abstract representation of birches. These are just, I don't know, I started with them and they just grew. The paintings painted themselves. I didn't paint them, I was a vehicle.